We told you Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is now back in Iran after stirring up a lot of controversy at the United Nations this week. And before leaving the U.S., he made what may be an offer that he would consider ending higher levels of uranium enrichment if world powers would give Iran nuclear fuel that they need for what he says is a medical research center. Should the U.S. consider the offer? Is giving nuclear fuel to Iran really a safer option? Let's ask Jim Walsh, an international security expert with the MIT Security Studies Program, an expert on Iran, and someone who happens to have had dinner with Mahmoud Ahmadinejad this week, or so I heard when you were talking on Fox. Hi, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
I'll skip the menu because you already covered that part, and I would love to hear your sense of the Iranian president when he was here. But toward the end of his trip, he became even more controversial, blaming the U.S., saying they were behind 9/11, but today maybe backtracking by saying if he were provided this fuel, they might reconsider how high they would enrich their own uranium. Is that safer?
Yeah, it's a lot better for them to be given fuel by the outside world, by other countries, than them producing it themselves. If they go to enrichment from 5% up to 20%, that puts them halfway down the road to being able to produce highly enriched uranium, which is the only kind of enrichment level you can use for nuclear weapons. We don't want them to gain experience enriching at a higher level. So if we can cap them where they are, that's much to be preferred.
But even if they say they won't, because we or other world powers provide the uranium they say they need for this medical reactor, what's their record on complying?
Yeah, well, I think it's a mixed record. In some cases, they have complied. In other cases, they haven't. And in a third case, you know, they've started and then pulled back. Let's look at the good news. Back in the early 2003, they negotiated with the European Union, and they actually suspended that enrichment program for 2 years, and they complied. That was, you know, a good thing. But then later on, IAEA had questions about some of their previous activity prior to 2000, whether it was involved weapons research or not, and they stonewalled on that, and then there's sort of been a trickling out and a series of changing stories. So not very good there. But, you know, what you do is you go back to Reagan's old maxim, you trust but verify, and in this particular case, the International Atomic Energy Agency has monitors, inspections, cameras, and they would watch what was happening with this fuel. The concern would not be that they would go ahead and enrich. The concern is that they might enrich elsewhere in some secret sort of way, and that's why we need to have that IAEA team in there as often as possible.
And then again, we do learn of secret plants, other nuclear facilities they have that we don't know about or the inspectors don't know about. Before I let you go, I do have to ask you about these comments about 9/11. How will the rest of the world view Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Iran in general, its leadership at least, after those remarks?
Well, it's, you know, horrific, offensive, unpresidential. There's no end to the way you can describe it. But it was calculated. And in fact, Jamie, these things, the offer to negotiate and these outrageous comments about 9/11 are in fact linked. Why do I say that? In order to negotiate with the U.S., he has to say something outrageous to back up his right flank. The last time he negotiated with the U.S. a year ago, he was attacked inside Iran for being too soft and giving away Iran's rights. So one way he can protect himself politically at home is to say offensive things, then the U.S. and others come back and condemn him, and that actually gives him political protection when he enters in a negotiation. So actually, the two things are tied together.
That's very interesting. I only have 10 seconds. Does he really run things back home?
No, it's the supreme leader. He's one important player, but the supreme leader is the decider in the Iranian system.
Interesting to watch. What a week. Jim Walsh, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.